Daily Words of God.
If you believe in God, then you must obey God. Put the truth into practice and fulfill all of your duties. Additionally, you must understand the things you should experience. If you only experience being dealt with, being disciplined, and being judged, if you are only able to enjoy God but remain unable to feel when God is disciplining you or dealing with you, this is unacceptable. Perhaps in this instance of refinement, you are able to stand your ground, but this is still not enough. You must still keep marching forward. The lesson of loving God never stops and has no end. People see believing in God as something that is extremely simple, but once they gain some practical experience, they then realize that belief in God is not as simple as people imagine. When God works to refine man, man suffers. The greater a person's refinement, the greater their love of God will be, and the more of God's might will be revealed in them. Conversely, the less refinement a person receives, the less their love of God will grow, and the less God's might will be revealed in them. The greater such a person's refinement and pain, and the more torment they experience, the deeper their love of God will grow, the more genuine their faith in God will become, and the more profound their knowledge of God will be. In your experiences, you will see people who suffer greatly as they are refined, who are dealt with and disciplined much, and you will see that it is those people who have a deep love for God and a more profound and penetrating knowledge of God. Those who have not experienced being dealt with have but a superficial knowledge, and they can only say, "God is so good. He bestows grace upon people so that they can enjoy Him." If people have experienced being dealt with and disciplined, then they are able to speak about the true knowledge of God. So the more wondrous God's work in man is, the more valuable and significant it is. The more impenetrable it is to you, and the more incompatible it is with your notions, the more God's work is able to conquer you, gain you, and make you perfect. How great is the significance of God's work! If God did not refine man in this way, if He did not work according to this method, then His work would be ineffectual and without significance. It was said in the past that God would select and gain this group and make them complete in the last days. In this, there is extraordinary significance. The greater the work He carries out within you, the deeper and purer your love for God. The greater the work of God, the more man is able to grasp something of His wisdom, and the deeper is man's knowledge of Him. During the last days, 6,000 years of God's plan for management will come to an end. Can it really end easily? Once He conquers mankind, will His work be over? Can it be so simple? People indeed imagine that it is as simple as this. But what God does is not so simple. No matter what part of God's work you care to mention, it all is unfathomable to man. If you were able to fathom it, then God's work would be without significance or value. The work done by God is unfathomable. It is completely counter to your notions. And the more irreconcilable it is with your notions, the more it shows that God's work is meaningful. If it were compatible with your notions, then it would be meaningless. Today, you feel that God's work is so wondrous, and the more wondrous you feel it is, the more you feel that God is unfathomable, and you see how great God's deeds are. If He only did some superficial, perfunctory work to conquer man, and did nothing else afterward, then man would be incapable of beholding the significance of God's work. Although you are receiving a little refinement now, it is of great benefit to your growth in life. So it is of the utmost necessity for you to undergo such hardship. Today, you are receiving a little refinement, but afterward, you will truly be able to behold the deeds of God, and ultimately you will say, God's deeds are so wondrous. These will be the words in your heart. Having experienced God's refinement for a while, some people ultimately said, believing in God is really difficult. The fact that they used the words, really difficult, shows that God's deeds are unfathomable, that God's work is possessed of great significance and value, and that His work is highly worthy of being treasured by man. If, after I have done so much work, you had not the slightest knowledge, then could my work still have value? It will make you say, service to God is really difficult. The deeds of God are so wondrous, and God truly is wise. God is so lovely. If, after undergoing a period of experience, you are able to say such words, then this proves that you have gained God's work in you. One day, when you are spreading the gospel abroad and someone asks you, "How is your faith in God going?" you will be able to say, "God's actions are so marvelous." They will feel that your words speak of real experiences. This is truly bearing witness. You will say that God's work is full of wisdom, and His work in you has truly convinced you and conquered your heart. You will always love Him, because He is more than worthy of mankind's love. If you can speak to these things, then you can move people's hearts. All of this is bearing witness. If you are able to bear resounding witness, to move people to tears, that shows that you truly are one who loves God, for you are able to testify to loving God. And through you, God's actions can be borne out in testimony. By your testimony, others are made to seek out God's work, to experience God's work, and in any environment they experience, they will be able to stand firm. This is the only genuine way of bearing witness, and this is exactly what is required of you now. You should see that God's work is extremely valuable and worthy of being treasured by people, that God is so precious and so abundant. He can not only speak, but also judge people, refine their hearts, bring them enjoyment, gain them, conquer them, and perfect them. From your experience, you will see that God is very lovable. So how much do you love God now? Can you really say these things from your heart? When you are able to express these words from the depths of your heart, then you will be able to bear witness. Once your experience has reached this level, you will be capable of being a witness for God, and you will be qualified. If you do not reach this level in your experience, then you will still be too far off. It is normal for people to show weaknesses during the process of refinement. But after refinement, you should be able to say, "God is so wise in His work." If you are truly able to attain a practical understanding of these words, then it will become something you cherish, and your experience will have value.